extend that one real long. We are back with episode number 135 of the Muay Thai Guys podcast, back at it 2 weeks in a row now that we have money on the line between the two of us, bringing you guys the entertainment during the times where everybody is trying to talk about politics and COVID and all this negative nonsense that even I, when listening to podcasts, when I'm trying to relax, I just can't take it anymore. I feel like I can't even have things in my ears. I can't be able to listen to a podcast without feeling that energy coming to us from back home. I feel like that's the reason why we left home. And, you know, my favorite comedians and podcasts and places that used to be sources of motivation are now just kind of like bummers, man.
Yeah, the world's a crazy place right now, and it's always good to just kind of dive deep into our world of Muay Thai and just talk about training and like get back focused. Because I'm not sure if I brought this up the last podcast, but I realized that there's like three main areas to my life. There's like regular life, then there's work, and then there's training. And focusing on training is always a lot of fun because it's just about focusing on self-improvement in a way, and it's a good way to escape all the madness that's going on and just be in your own little world. And ain't nothing better than Muay Thai. I mean, if you're listening to this, then you obviously like Muay Thai, and it's like our escape and our ability to just turn things around, make things the best we can. So yeah, I'm excited to jump into the topic. The topic you had was a good idea. I'm excited about that. But before we jump into that, how's Phuket? You settle in there? How's the training routine going over at Powerhouse?
Man, everything is going great. The routine here is a mix of, like, it definitely is that Thai regimen of 5 rounds on the pads, 5 rounds on the bag, going into sparring, going into clinching, and it's that long grind with the addition of actual focus points of like, what are we working on today, and drilling things out and making it a lot more technical, which we often tend to like get away from in Thailand because it's just like this daily grind of like, you know, hardening the body, hardening the mind.
Mhm.
And, you know, we don't have that same type of experience to go into the ring, you know, 100, 200 times by the time that we're the age that we are now, you know. So it's been pretty nice to have that type of dynamic rhythm and to keep the mind focused. It makes me look forward to training every single day, even though I know it's going to be a hard day, but I look forward to it because I'm willing to invest into the training and get something back out of it. You know, sometimes you go into a session and you feel like you're investing everything you have and you're not really learning anything, and you're kind of plateauing.
Yeah, I mean, the excitement to train again is always nice to have because sometimes it can get very monotonous and you're just kind of grinding it out day in and day out. You're staying disciplined, you're still putting in the hours, but there's a difference. Once you shift that energy, you have a different environment around you. It can definitely like reignite some things that have been kind of just sitting stagnant. And so that's good to hear, man. I mean, Powerhouse sounds like such a great environment for people who are like just dedicated. And if you're here in Thailand right now, I mean, we're like the only place that you can fight like regularly right now. And so it's like a good opportunity for a lot of people there. I know they're sponsoring fighters. One of our guys from Diamond, Ruben, just went over there as well. And so, yeah, it's cool to see the growth because the Pharaohs are cool people. And so the fact that they're doing such a great job with not just like growing the gym, but like making it a purposeful training session. I mean, kudos to them. I'm definitely going to be swinging by at some point, man. So get your couch ready for me.
100% we do. Yeah, speaking of getting a couch, we actually signed for a lease for a year, which we have never done before. You know, we've
Oh,
spoken
shit.
about this, about me being in Chiang Mai, and just
Mhm.
as soon as I was talking about like, whoa, we really settled into one place for once, we end up moving to another and staying there for 6 months because of COVID and whatnot. But I feel like it's the perfect middle ground for us here. It's a good spot for me, especially because a lot of the guys are around the 80 kilo range. I mean, like my Shark Tank the other day was Khalil Roundtree. Then you have Eddie coming in the next round. Then you have another guy, Jack, that's a fighter there, who's also around that like 77 kilo range. So if you have a 3 minute Shark Tank round every like minute or 30 seconds, people coming in, and all of it being like these high level pros, everyone's on the same page, like keeps your mind sharp. It's not that I was
Fucking A.
lazy. It's not that I was lazy before, but the fact that like some of those reflexes aren't stimulated. And yeah, I highly recommend having those guys that like really push you, and like every round you have with that person, you got to stay like super sharp.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great to hear, man. It's hard to find good, not just training partners, but like a team environment. I mean, obviously, a lot of gyms do a great job of it. Diamond has done a good job of it as well. But just with like the way COVID and the world is, it's rare. And so the fact that they're doing such a good job over there, I'm a big fan of Khalil Roundtree, man. Dude, his last fight. When is he fighting again, by the way? Because his last fight, he was fucking murdering the dude with like these sick switch kicks, like inside switch kicks to a southpaw, and he's southpaw, and like you just don't see shit like that often. He was doing like real Muay Thai, and it was beautiful to see. So I'm kind of jealous, but at the same time, fuck sparring him because like his left roundhouses. No,
But his
thank you.
control, there's a nice thing. You have this big guy that is a high level fighter, and he has a ton of power, but he spars you like the Thais spar you, because he came up in Bangkok, at Pet India Academy. So, he had to make sure to be respectful there. So he translates that when he comes into the gym here. Like he'll spar with the girls that are, 130 pounders, and he's able to be controlled doing that, and still hitting them and like making them be known that they have holes in their game, whatever it may be, but still not knocking them out despite the size that he is, throwing that type of weight around. Actually, I spoke personally with him, and he was talking about, like he wants to get ready for these fights, but he doesn't want to leave Thailand because then he doesn't know when he can come back in.
Mhm.
So it feels like, he's just so in love with the culture here, with the sport, that, he said he has nothing to prove. He just wants to do things kind of his way.
That's beautiful, man. And I think a lot of the things that you touched upon, I just was editing a video, hard sparring versus light sparring, and we kind of cover a lot of the things that you just mentioned about the bigger guys being able to still control themselves, and how it's actually beneficial going with more experienced people than beginners, because usually there's just a little bit of a learning curve, and they throw things that you're not expecting, and it could be a little wild. But a lot of the things that you touched on kind of can transition into our main topic today, which is being a good student, like just being a student of the art, a student of the sport, and really diving deep into just getting the most out of your training sessions. And when it comes down to it, I mean, me and Paul will be diving a little bit deeper right now, but we've talked about this in the past, about just the idea of having the right type of mindset when it comes to training. And so, yeah, why don't you start off with like some of the most important aspects when it comes to being a good student of the sport?
I think number one is actually the number one thing that you can do for yourself, and the thing that you can embed in your mind that's going to really translate and really help you out throughout your entire career, or just yourself as a student, to get the most out of training, which is investing in yourself. I have a lot of people that come up to me and they say like, man, I feel like my coach doesn't really pay attention to me. He doesn't invest himself in me. And, you have a gym of 15 to 20 people in every class. And who is the coach most likely to work with and kind of pick out of the bunch and invest into? Well, is the person that's actually investing in themselves, the person that seems like they're disciplined, the person that comes in, they're goal oriented, and they're consistent. They're there, which will blend into number two, which is also investing in your teammates. So if he sees these two things, where you're investing in yourself, he will know that once he puts his time into you, that you will utilize that time even outside of the gym. I mean, I've had guys where, I've talked about this before, private lessons, where people come in, and then on the next day they come back in and they're better, because I knew that they went back home, or that next morning they kept practicing what I taught them. Versus other people, they would literally waste their money, and those were the ones I usually charge the most. Because it's a real grind for me to teach, and then next week I'm reteaching the same exact thing over again, rather than the people that really invested in themselves. Oftentimes I'd led that 1 hour private run 2 hours, three. Remember Cassie, she came to one of a number of our camps, and then she ended up living in Thailand. Her dedication and how long she was willing to listen to everything. I saw how much she invested the time in herself. So oftentimes we'd go for 2.5 hours, and she wouldn't say a single thing like, "Oh, are we running late? I was only supposed to be here for an hour." We got done when we got done. And that type of investment that you make in yourself is only going to benefit you with other people coming in.
Yeah, it's not just a money investment either. It's just a time and energy investment
Mm-hmm.
because like when it comes down to like training, like we all have 24 hours in a day. I know some people's schedules are busy than others. You have various responsibilities and everything. But when it comes down to it, you can dictate where you spend your time and energy. Like, is it the extra hour of TV at night, or is it extra hour of putting in some fight study or some extra training, some shadow boxing, or just trying to understand the sport a little bit deeper? And then when it comes to the physical aspects of it, of like actually traveling to Thailand or traveling to do private training sessions or whatever it may be, a lot of people aren't willing to go the extra mile, aren't willing to drive 2 or 3 hours to get a high quality private lesson just for like an hour or two, or to go to other team gyms and to spar with a variety of different sizes and fight styles. Like a lot of people don't take the time to do that. And I think just doing that extra stuff it's just like doing the extra credit in school, it's just going to pay off in the long run. And then you'll just have that for the rest of your career. And it's all valuable experiences in one form or another. But it always comes down to like how good do you want to get? How far do you want to take this? And I think that's another really important thing when it comes to being a good student, is knowing that like this is a lifetime thing. This isn't just like a once time thing. This is like for the rest of my life, I'm going to be studying Muay Thai or martial arts, whatever it may be. And so like just knowing that you're a student for life, that's like the best investment that you can make, is just like have that understanding that, I'm a student for fucking life.
Yeah. And right now in the modern era of social media, you have to also be mindful of, like, not that you want to present yourself in a fake way, but in a way where that also shows how you're investing in yourself. Because I see that coaches do look at their students' social media from time to time, and they see that they're kind of fucking off.
Mm-hmm.
And when they see that they're fucking off on the weekends, they're cheating on their diet, they're lying to them, like, oh man, can't make it to practice today, or like, I don't have the money to pay my dues. And then you see, them going out on the weekends to nightclubs, spending all their money. Then how much can you invest in yourself in that type of student, when you have somebody in the gym, maybe even cleaning the mats, staying after, doing extra rounds on the bag, or helping out their students, which transitions us into number two. Not only investing in yourself, but investing in your teammates. One person that can help you is your coach. Well, another person that can help you is your teammate, especially if they're higher level than you. I remember I'd have guys all the time when I was back in Connecticut. If one person, especially my friend Jay, he was really committed to the sport itself. He moved over to our gym and he offered all the time to hold pads for me. And what that did was, I would come in the mornings when we didn't have class. And since he held pads for me, I would give him my time as well for free. So even though the exchange, to someone that's like higher level than yourself, it's still a worthwhile investment, because now I get 2 training sessions a day. And then I also help you out because you're the one who offered.
Yeah, just understanding the value of like the people around you and knowing that like you have a lot of impact on how they show up as well. Because like you have to show up, you have to show that you're ready to reciprocate the type of energy that you want to see. Like if someone is slacking and you're motivated and you want to have a fight, you want to be a champion, you want to lose weight, whatever it may be, then it's up to you to like be a leader and get them on board, get them to see their vision in order to bring the best out of them in training. Because if you don't have good training partners and if you don't have a good environment around you, it's going to be really easy to fall into just complacency and be stagnant with your growth, not really be pushing hard. And obviously it all goes in seasons, right? Like you're going to have seasons where you go harder than others, but it's really important for you to consistently be like your own leader in a way. Like you have to lead yourself, and then you have to start leading others around you if you want to get to that bigger vision of yourself. Because like we're talking about being not just a good student, like you be a fucking great student, be an amazing student at martial arts, at life. And in order to do that, you need to bring the people around you up with you. Otherwise they're just going to be negating any type of energy that you put out. And so like, when it comes to investing in yourself, investing in your teammates and everyone around you, this is a really important concept to grasp, because otherwise you'll just be fighting an uphill battle for like years to come without any awareness that you're even doing it.
You know, what you just said really made me think of the fact that when you spend that time investing in other people, not only yourself, I feel like at the times that things get really low, let's say if you lose a fight, those people will always be there because they respect you for the teammate that you are rather than the results that you produce in the ring. And I feel like if you're a really, really selfish person and a selfish fighter, then, you know, that's usually when you kind of take a step back after a loss and you're like, oh, fuck, no one's in my corner, you know? So I feel like investing in others makes those long-term relationships that even surpass what's inside the ring or inside the gym. Just having that companionship, that type of leadership. What you talked about is, if you're not showing up for yourself, at least show up for the others. And I've had that happen a number of times where I felt like real lows and I wasn't showing up for myself, but I did feel responsible for the students in the gym or training partners that were getting ready for fights, for me to be there to help them prepare, to have another body, or to even give a little bit of advice. Because, you know, oftentimes we don't take our own advice, but we have really good things to give, little gems to give to other people. It's a lot easier to do that. And if you can be there for others, even if you can't be there for yourself, I feel like uh, that actually makes you better at the end of the day.
Yeah, and I also think like just transitioning to like the next thing is the communication between coaches, teammates, and even like the gym owners, right? And knowing that like it's all open and out in the air, and there's not anything going behind the scenes that might affect your training, affect your mindset, affect your this environment. Because we were just talking about how important your environment is, and so it's important for you to do an assessment of your teammates, your coaches, your even relationships nearby you. But when it comes to like your coaches, I mean, obviously they're going to be the ones who are overseeing your training and overseeing your career in a way, and so making sure that you are constantly telling them what it is you're training for and what it is you want out of training, how you want to be trained, and any additional guidance is going to be super important. But at the same time, it's going to take a lot of communication in regards to listening to what your trainer's telling you, what your coaches are telling you, and making sure that you're taking everything in and not being so hard-headed and stuck on what you think is going to be right. Because usually, well, not usually, but there's a lot of times where someone with an outside perspective will see things that you obviously don't see. And so that's why you have to be super just open with. One thing I've learned about fucking life, bro, is to be open with communication. Like just talk things out, because like holding things in and everything is just like not gonna create a good energy and environment. And so like when it comes to your training, especially if you're there often, you want to nurture a good environment. And so open communication is key in that sense.
Oftentimes, especially as fighters, you know, we keep things in. So when you have two people that do that and have that type of personality, oftentimes there's disagreements when there really is no bad energy, bad blood, anything like that. It's just two people that are kind of like holding things in. Maybe they even have positive things to say, but like they both be quiet, you know, versus like if you both just let out in the air, and you realize how much you actually have in common, whether it's with your coaches or your teammates. Like you maybe you have some sparring rounds and then you don't talk about it, but sometimes there's like, you know, the energy in the air. You're like, oh man, those two guys don't kind of like vibe together, when in reality they could actually, you know, be friends if they just kind of talked about it out loud. I think what you said is, you know, anything in life, not just in the gym, to have these open communications. Like I feel like problems with a failure to communicate, as the quote says, is like one of the biggest failures in life. Because even today, so I got pulled over on the bike and we ended up having to pay a ticket. I had my license and everything, and I just couldn't understand what he was saying. And just me asking the question and him not being able to like speak English properly, the cop was screaming in my face. I mean, like yelling really loud. And I was just trying to figure out how to get my license back. And he couldn't understand me. I couldn't understand him. And then this disagreement, you know, led to this, literally felt like it was about to be a physical altercation of him yelling at me and me just trying to like stay cool. Like, no, I just want to know where the license is. And it literally was just a failure to communicate. Once I like figured out what he was saying by like bringing it around and like puzzling different words together, then we both like kind of smiled at each other and you're like, oh, okay. You were just trying to get how to pay for the ticket out of me rather than like being a foreigner, like trying to get out of the ticket, you know?
Yes. Yeah.
It was just a failure to communicate. And that often happens. We talked about that last week on the podcast. I talked about the example that I got in my email about the student not knowing whether they're ready to fight because their coach never went up to them and said, I want you to fight. Well, oftentimes in the West, in Thailand, for sure, the trainer will go up to you and say, oh, you want to fight? You want to fight? they have a personal investment in that. But in the West, oftentimes it's depending on your goals. So there's a 50-50% chance that maybe they haven't talked to you because they don't think you're ready yet, or they are waiting for you to take that step. But either way, you're not going to know unless you communicate.
Yeah, and we had a good question. So we're doing this live on YouTube, by the way, on Thursdays at 8:30 a.m. Eastern time. Like Paul said in the beginning, we have bets. So if one of us doesn't show up for the podcast this week, that we owe each other's significant other $50 to do shopping, and so it's a good incentive. But then we have our ladies cheering against us in a way. So she's like, my Paul better not show up so I can get this $50 to buy this new sandals or whatever. But going back to what I was about to say was Richard was asking in the similar aspect in regards to communication, how to deal with conflicting information from multiple trainers. Now, I feel like this is a good question to kind of pony off of, since it's all relative. The communication is super key here. And also talk about being a good student, right? Being a good student, in my opinion, is learning from as many teachers as possible, but obviously having mentors and having trainers or coaches that you stick with for a decent chunk, so you can really develop some type of bond and communication on a different layer. But when it comes to learning from different trainers, you're going to be learning a lot of different conflicting information, but you're ultimately, as a student, trying to take all the information you've taken in from all your trainers, all your training partners, all your sparring sessions, all your heavy bag work, and trying to create your own style out of that and picking the best and most effective things that work based off your opinion and what works for you. And so like, that's what trainers are doing. That's what coaches are doing. They're teaching you things that they know have worked for them and people around them. But does that necessarily mean that kicking a roundhouse one way compared to another way is better? Yes and no, but like, it's all up to you. And so I think it's really important to kind of like just get that out there as being a good student. Just make sure that you're just taking as much as you can and just making it your own.
When it comes to the multiple trainers, I think it's most applicable here in Thailand because in the West, you only have one or two trainers in the gym. You know, you have mostly like a few assistant trainers, but here in Thailand, you have a stable of trainers, and a lot of them all know what they're talking about. They just do things completely differently based on their own style. Like some are knee fighters, some are like femur fighters, and I feel like they like kind of preach exactly what they do. And I've seen this a lot in the gyms, like people being like, he just told me this, and he just told me the complete opposite thing. Like you swing your hand down, you swing your hand across, you swing your hand this way, or you stutter your feet that way. And I feel like what you said is really important, is to kind of formulate your own style, like what feels best to you, what is most successful when you actually apply it to sparring or inside the ring. I've had to definitely take a deep dive on that, like taking different styles. My kicking style actually is like a blend of learning from sparring with Onion Topic, studying guys like Sanchai, and then like getting taught by Kupot, his kicking style, like the setup for the kicking style, but then the patterns that I see like Sanchai do, because it is also a southpaw. And now working here at Powerhouse with Eddie is like how to blend it all with the long guy techniques as well. Now that we can communicate in English, which is awesome. We can like kind of blend all these things together and then like make it fit my body. So I think it's communicating with the trainer, as we talked about, having good communication. And if the multiple trainers are saying different things, communicating that as well. Like, I learned this from this trainer. Why is this better than that? and waiting to ask those questions, I think, either before the training session. So then they go, oh, okay, I can work this with you, or after the training session. And maybe they give you extra time, or they focus on it the next time that you come into the gym. I feel like in the middle of training, they're not as receptible because they're trying to get you to work and finish off the pad rounds. So sometimes I see guys use that as an excuse to like get a round off and get a breather. So I think it's best to do it right before a round. Ask those questions like, okay, this trainer was saying this conflicting thing. What do you think about that? And then maybe they can show you both ways on the pads or explain it to you.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to kind of move on to the next topic, which is just keeping like a humble, positive attitude. And because like you're going to be taught all these different philosophies and methods and techniques and combinations, and just understanding that like you'll never like the beauty of martial arts is that we're always striving for perfection, knowing that like we'll never reach it, but we're trying to get like as close as we can. And so that's just the having the attitude, knowing the humble attitude, knowing that like you'll never like be like good enough. I don't want to say it that way, but like you'll never I don't want to say you'll never reach your full potential, but there will always be like room.
Perfection,
Yeah,
exactly.
there'll always be something to continue to strive for and to continue to get better on. And the thing about fighting too is that there will always be a better fighter than you. There will always be a better fighter than you. At least someone who can like compete with you and like fucking throw down. I mean, you talk about all the ties and everything. So just knowing that like it's funny. I just posted a old video training video of myself, and we've talked about this before as well. It's like back then, I think this video was like 7 or 8 years old. Back then, I thought I was so good. I thought I was like, yo, I could beat anybody. Walk out, bring it on, bitch. You know, like. And meanwhile, I'm looking at myself. I'm like, oh, I'm horrible. It is like so hard to watch, knowing what I know now. And yeah, it just that humbles you. If you're in the sport long enough, you'll have a humble attitude. That's for sure, because this sport is something that will humble people. But ultimately keeping positive and making sure that like even when you are being humbled, when you're getting those bad training sessions, your bad sparring sessions, bad losses, just knowing that like it's all good, live to fight another day, and you're still doing the sport that you love, and that's a win in its own right.
Yeah, I think we should do an entirely separate episode on how to still keep your confidence while being humble and
Mhm.
open to learning and just seeing those mistakes, not clouding your judgment and having pretty much yes men surrounding you, but still having the confidence of getting in the ring to be able to perform at your full potential. Because that's not good either, to be humble in a way where you're self-deprecating, you're unsure of the things that you're
Mhm.
doing, and maybe, I mean, I've seen a lot of guys that are really skilled in the gym, and I feel like they hold back their own potential because they are so humble.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because like you have to find the right balance, the right recipe of confidence but humble attitude, and that's something that you're constantly tinkering with. And we had another good question I wanted to just ask or answer real quick while we're going through this, and it was: do you spar with a game plan? Like, are you looking to work on 2 or 3 things? I would say, me personally, it depends on the day. Some days I have like a specific game plan where like, all right, I'm going to work my lead side strikes and really establish my teep and build off my teep. Or then the next round, I'll be like, all right, I'm going to focus on boxing. Or maybe it could be the whole day is a theme. Or the whole theme could just be, I'm just going to fucking no mind, just go in there. Whatever happens, happens. Cause like that's how I've been fighting recently, with no game plan, with just going in and just fighting my fight, whatever that may be, and just letting it kind of just come organically like that. And so I think it's just a experimentation time. Like if you're sparring enough, making sure that you're experimenting with different methods, whether you're trying to fight in a different stance or you're working on a certain strike or a combination or technique, it's really good time to test that. But it's also a good time to just flow sometimes and just see whatever your body's been training for the past however long.
Yeah, I feel like sometimes I go in and I think like, oh, I really got to change that. So I really focus in on it, and I'll let myself lose rounds, do whatever. It really doesn't matter to me. I'm just trying to focus on the feeling or balance or whatever it may be. If I notice that I'm making mistakes doing something, So I allow myself to fail over and over again in the sparring session, and I just try to feel it out, that one specific thing. But then there are other training sessions, exactly what you said. I think that's a perfect way of describing it, just having no mind. So you're just kind of working on reflexes and adapting with the flow of the round and the game that your opponent is facing you with. Because a lot of the time, if you do end up having a plan and then the person's not doing exactly what you want them to, you can't just keep forcing it and then getting countered in return. So you have to adapt. So having that like no mind mindset and just no mind mindset, like an oxymoron, right? Just being able to adapt on the fly, that's what builds those reflexes that you can take into the ring with you.
Beautifully said. So Richard also asked, like, if we're doing a Q&A afterwards. Yes, we'll finish up the main portion of the podcast. We got number 5 coming up, but afterwards, if you guys are here on YouTube, like I said, on Thursday mornings at 8:30 a.m. Eastern, it's 7:30 Thailand time Thursday. So it always messes up my mind, but you can jump on with us live and ask us any questions, and we'll do our best to answer them. But while we wrap up with number 5, Paul, separating personal life from the gym.
I think this is really important as well. I feel like sometimes it comes into play, whether it be in sparring sessions or how you invest yourself in your teammates. I've even seen it from coaches, and our follow-up episode is actually going to go over that, like how to be the best coach that you can be. Maybe you don't run a gym, but you are someone that runs privates within the classes, and how you lead others essentially. And I feel like a lot of the coaches that I've seen be able to keep a gym alive for a long time were the ones that completely separated their personal life. Sometimes you would learn about the things that they're struggling with and going through in their personal life, and you're like, whoa, he showed up to class and he talked to me, like investing in me without even like seeming any different. His attitude didn't change at all. He came in with smiles for the people, for the students, for the love of the sport, and was able to leave all of that behind. So if you can do that for your training partners, I think it just builds a good habit as well. Because if I didn't show up every time I had a personal issue pop up, then I probably wouldn't show up, have the time to the gym. So I want to show up there, and I want to show up with a good attitude. It's just like if you take things out on people that aren't doing them to you, you're taking like this toxicity that someone else passed on to you. It's almost like a plague that's spreading throughout, your friendships, your relationships. And then if you take it into the gym, then it does the same exact thing. No one likes ill energy.
I think I recently watched the show Kingdom, as I know you did too.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a perfect example of how to not go about separating your personal life with gym life, because they're like so interconnected. And so definitely a good show, recommended, but that's not how you want to go about doing things. Like, obviously there's going to be some crossover from personal life and business, especially when you're like really involved in it. And it will just be important to make sure that like when you're home, when you're at training, you're at training, and try your best not to let the outside or one infect the other, I should say. Because like they will affect each other, but shouldn't. Oh, that was fucking genius, Sean. Fucking genius. Drop the mic. We're done. That's the show. But no, seriously, I think it's important to, like, Liz is obviously in my personal life, but she also trains at the gym, and we also have relationships inside and outside the gym. But when it comes to training, like when we're at the gym, we're fucking training. Like that's all we're doing, and that's my sanctuary in a way. That's where I go to. That's where we're talking about come a full circle. That's what we're talking about at the beginning of the show, is having Muay Thai as our sanctuary from the madness going on in the world. And so making sure that you keep that space clean, you throw some sage up in that bitch, and just make sure that like all those evil demon spirits are gone. That's what it's all about, baby.
Yeah, we had Eddie on the podcast some time ago, and he was talking about how one of the major changes that he made was when he was coming in the gym previously, he was thinking about his home life, his family, and like, oh man, am I not spending enough time? And then he would be with the family and stressing about the gym, like, oh, am I not putting in enough work at the gym? And then he was like, man, both were suffering because my mind was in the opposite place wherever I physically was. And it's like the second that I just flip the switch where if I'm home, I'm home. I'm going to be the best fucking dad I can be. And then when I'm in the gym, I'm going to be the best fighter that I can be. I'm not going to worry about that. That actually made him a better father. You know, like some people think like it makes you better if you're thinking about them while you're at the gym, when in reality, like, first of all, no one sees your thoughts. And then second of all, like now you kind of start to think negative thoughts because of it. And then that doesn't make you a great person when you come home and you bring that energy with you.
Yeah, I mean, just being present in whatever activity that you're doing is super important, you know? Yeah, you got Goose Fraba, you know, just or meditation or whatever it may be. But I think just like bringing attention to whatever you're doing and just being fully present, that's one of the struggles with like cell phones and social media, though, is that even when you're trying to do one thing or another, one thing that drove me crazy, I remember teaching classes back in New York, is when we're training and I'm teaching the class and someone goes off the mat to like check their phone. Not because it's ringing, not because it's doing anything, just to go check the phone. That shit drove me crazy. And so I would always like curse them out. But like it's such an addiction to so many people where they can't even be away for more than an hour at a time. And I think it's really important to know that like when you're doing something, whether it's Muay Thai, whether it's spending time with relate with people that you're close to, it's important to like get off your phone, be present, just be there. And that's like you said, no one's gonna know if you're thinking about it when you're not doing it. And doing that is just a wasted energy. If you're gonna even think about it, then actually write it down, like journal and like get it out your fucking head and come back to where you're at. That's written down. You don't have to worry about it anymore and just move forward. So yeah, I like these I feel like you just came up with this podcast idea, and I thought it was such a good thing to dive into, because obviously we can go a lot more into like other characteristics and attributes of a good student, like just being disciplined, showing up, being true to your word, and just making sure that you're having that positive, humble mindset, I think is super important. So thanks for the idea, Paul. This was a good topic that I feel like will help a lot of people.
Yeah, I feel like all those things fall into the umbrella of investing in yourself, investing in your partners. Like all those things will come from it, because if you are invested in yourself and your partners, then the discipline will follow, you know, setting the different goals and being able to follow through. I'm reading The War of Art, and it talks about how showing up, you know, invites the muse, the one that speaks into your ear, these creations that end up happening, but they don't happen unless you actually sit down with that pen and paper to write, or you show up to the gym. It's often that time that we're alone, we're on the bag, we're just hitting things, and then something, you feel something. You're like, where did that come from? Why did I change it? You know, like sometimes you don't even have a thought. Sometimes you do, but like what generated that thought in the first place? You know, what brought that about? I feel like it's one of those things when you take like DMT or whatever. I hear Joe Rogan talk about this all the time. He's like, I don't know where these jokes come from. Like they have to be from like an alternate universe. Something has to come. And you know, the philosophers of, you know, the old times talked about this, and how it pretty much embedded itself in like poetry or any type of creative creation. And the same goes for martial arts. Like how do we make these adjustments? How do these things happen when we're on our own in training? Well, we got to show up, we got to invest in ourselves and others, and then somehow, you know, something comes in our ear and you know, creates that thought that translates itself into reality.
Yeah, it's funny. I just started reading Turning Pro again, and Stephen Pressfield, for those of you who haven't read any of his books, he has a good, I think it's a collection of 3 books that are highly recommended. War of Art, Turning Pro, and what was the third book? It's like The Warrior Ethos, I know, is one of his. I don't remember. Do you?
I believe it's something in that sense, but the one that I bought, it's on Kindle. It fuses the 3 together.
I like that. But anyway, his books are really he just really short, digestible, and easy and like direct, and they give a lot of useful insights that kind of make you think. And also, just by reading these types of philosophies and mindsets and like just ideas, it will constantly keep it on your mind about showing up, about implementing these concepts that he's speaking of. And so yeah, anything else you want to talk about before we start doing the Q&A with the fans?
And that's how you become a good
That's
student.
how you become a good student, bitches. Boom.
Those are the 5 steps. Those are the 5 steps. The rest will follow. You can obviously adapt and improve on different points, but I think those are really the main ones. So jumping into the Q&A, let's keep it to how many? How many are we going to give them today?
We've been doing this for 40 minutes, so we'll do like up to 10 minutes of Q&A, but we will also cut it short if there's not any questions, but let's see how it goes. So first off, Zach wants to know, how do I get my missus to let me train more?
We have a comment right under it saying, get a new missus.
Oh man, but I think it's important to, like, we were talking about communication. Communication is key, and like, if you feel that training is that important to you and that you need it, like when it comes down to like just human relationships and everything, in order for you to be the best husband, the best boyfriend, whatever it is, you have to be the best version of yourself. And what does that entail? It means spending time to improve yourself and work on yourself and make yourself happy. And if training does that, then you have to explain that to your missus and be like, yo, if I'm not training, I'm not happy. If I'm not happy, I can't be the best husband. If I'm not the best husband, then I don't know what to tell you. Let me train, you know?
I feel like that type of question and those things that pop up are actually good incentives for you to question your why. I feel like a lot of the times I really enjoy certain things and I do them and they're kind of automatic because I know the benefits of them. I feel them, but sometimes it's hard to put into words. So when those things are questioned by other people, whether it be by your parents that don't want you to do something that you want to do, or it be by your girlfriend that doesn't want you to train as much as you're training, I feel like you have to sit down with yourself actually and think about the why. Like why do I want to train so much? Why do I do this? Like, what does it do for me? And I feel like if you come up with those answers, those are the things that you can actually use in that conversation when speaking to that significant other time. Like, well, when I come home, how like sometimes I come with like negative energy. I can't like get that steam off my chest. I'm just not the same person, wherever it may be, or it makes me better as a boyfriend as well when I get home, or I feel like I want to be able to defend or become a modeling character for our kids, that we can overcome adversity, that like when being bullied, that we can stand up for ourselves, or whatever the reason may be for you. But I think you have to be the one to come up with that.
Beautifully said. Couldn't have said it better myself. So we'll go next one. How to block rib kicks. He blocks head kicks and even consume a few of them. I'm not sure if you should be consuming too many head kicks, to be honest, but every rib kick takes his breath out. So generally speaking, check the kicks or evade the kicks. I mean, a lot of it just comes down to training and like drilling, and just one thing I've noticed a lot when I'm talking to like some students at like Diamond Muay Thai and everything is that not a lot of people know how to train by themselves, how to train defense by themselves. And it's really important for you to develop some type of muscle memory to always be adding defense into everything you do, whether it's shadow boxing or heavy bag work or pad work or like anything. Just always adding a check after you throw a combination, or always adding some type of parry motion after you throw a kick. I think developing those types of reflexes will help, but ultimately, man, like you got to learn how to get beat up before you figure shit out. Like it's just like a learning process that you got to try different things and experiment with different things, study other fighters that are defending kicks well, and see what they're doing well and try to implement in your own. What are your thoughts, Paul?
Yeah, I feel like sometimes it's hard to see. Like, like I hear all the time the Thais yelling at my training partners, like I'm left kicking, left kicking. They're like, block, why you no block? Why you no block? And I know exactly why they don't block. I keep putting them out of position or getting them out of balance, and I won't kick them when they look like they're balanced and they can check. So I get them out of position, I get them unbalanced, and then I kick and kick. And why you no block? It's because they're out of balance. So I feel like always being in position, I feel like a lot of people they underestimate it, especially in the West. They feel like they can box like a Western way. Like, why did the Thai stand the way they stand? Why do they fight the way that they fight? Because they're always in position to be able to block and return and get those high scoring techniques like the body kicks, the neck kicks. So I feel like working on what Sean said, like always blocking at the end of combinations, working on those defensive maneuvers, whether you slide away, you lean back, and you check. You need those three, and so you can mix up your defense as well. I have a body kick system, like a Thai striking body kick system in the striking academy, so you can check that out as well. And I try to build these systems for people to understand them more, but there's nothing better that you can do than actually drilling it out and like putting those techniques in your head and then going with a partner to be able to do it. But the main thing would definitely be like balanced position. Can I check? Like, can I jab and then check? Can I cross, then check? Can I kick and then check and kick again?
Yeah, I think another concept that I notice a lot of people, it took me a while to understand, is having most of your weight on your back foot. So this way you're able to check super quick. And like the whole concept of balance and a good stance and like just the fundamentals, really, just like really getting the fundamentals down and having a really high understanding of them is going to help you in all aspects, as well as obviously blocking body kicks. So next question, we got John Winger. Have we ever kicked something and our toenail came clean right off your big toe? No. No. Sorry. I don't have any experience in that.
I've had my pinky toe come off from kicking things too much, but I don't know. I just rip it off and then
Drink
continue.
more milk. Drink more milk, bro. Need to get stronger nails. Juke Fast. Any other books on philosophy side of martial arts? A few come to mind to me. One, actually, a bunch of come to mind to me, so stop me if I end up like just spewing them off. But Mastery by Robert Greene. It's not necessarily a martial arts book, but it's a good book about how to master something, how to like with historical anecdotes on great like history's greats like Alexander the Great and Napoleon and Mozart, and the list goes on, and understanding how they became masters and actually looking back at their lives and how each aspect of their life was essentially the path to mastery and how you can replicate that in your life. That's a really good book. The Book of Five Rings, Hakagure, and The Fighter's Mind is a good one as well. And there's a bunch of more. Another really great book that's not necessarily martial arts, but it's just one of my highly recommended books is Outwitting the Devil by Napoleon Hill. It's one of his lesser known books, but he's essentially having an interview with the devil. And it's just a really interesting conversation, and it's written really well. It's not like a regular self-help book, and I like the way he told it in like story format. You don't know if he's actually thinking that he's talking to the devil or that he wrote it that way, or whatever it may be. And so it's just it's a really good read, and it covers a lot of areas of what gets people into this like zombie-like state of limbo, living day-to-day life, essentially, and like how the devil's able to keep people from pursuing their passions and what they're meaning to do and how to escape that. So I thought it was a good read. What are your book recommendations? I know you're reading The War of Art. That's a great book as well.
I feel like whenever I'm reading a certain book, I'm like, this is the one that people need to read, because those things always resonate. So I feel like as long as you're constantly putting those things in your head and then following the principles that it's talking about, then you're doing a good thing. I really enjoyed the David Goggins book on audio. That was a really good one when it comes to, just overcoming every obstacle that gets in the way, and mainly your mind, overcoming the mind, which is obviously relatable to martial arts. Discipline Equals Freedom from Jocko Willink. That's a great one. not martial arts related, but he isn't a martial artist and someone. Yeah, he risked his life. So there's nothing closer to, like combat than shooting at someone and possibly, having that frag hit you as well. So that was a really good one as well. The War of Art right now, like I said, I feel like is a really good one because it also translates itself to like, how do you go from amateur to pro? What is the difference from the amateurs and the pros? So I really recommend that Kindle version that kind of blends all three of the books together because they build on each other really well.
Boom. All right. So we'll do a little bit more rapid fire for the next few questions and see where we're at. Okay. So Strain of Hate says he's new to Muay Thai, been doing it for a month now, but he's struggling a little bit with recovery, making it difficult to go more than 2 times a week right now. Should he go full in 2 to 4 times a week, no matter what? Any recovery tips or philosophies that you would like to bestow upon us, Kun Paul?
For sure. I think you should. Yeah, I think you should go to the 4 and condition your body that way because I feel like at that point, that's what you need. When you get to further points, that's when like you can really be hitting overtraining when you're doing it 6 times a week. But if 2 times a week is like really killing you, then I feel like is the conditioning that you actually do need. I feel like spending time doing maybe less intense things, working on like your aerobic base. The main thing is sleep, man. There's nothing better than resting the body and getting the right sleep in. We ourselves actually just got a meal prep company. So I feel like that takes away all the guesswork when it comes to nutrition and recovery. And when the gut feels good, your body feels good, you feel light, you feel more lean, and it's a lot easier to recover. And when your mind is not cloudy and you feel heavy after having a heavy meal. So that nutrition portion, either meal prep yourself or order, and then the sleep. That's number 1. And stretching, highly, highly underrated. I feel like there's no supplement in the world unless you're doing like PEDs that can help you recover better than stretching and mobility can. Because think about it, like you're banging on that joint, it's causing the muscle tissue to contract, right? And then it causes those points where you have to work them out. Now, if you do that on a daily basis, you work these things out, they never really become a problem.
Beautifully said. Yeah, I did a YouTube video on a bunch of recovery methods. I recommend checking that out, but Paul pretty much touched them all on the head. And yeah, go with that. So Vinny wants to know, do we lift weights consistently as well? Yes, we both do. We both use programs created by Don Heatrick. We always pass people on to him because he is like the nerdiest dude when it comes to Muay Thai strength and conditioning. And he loves that shit. So go to heatrick.com and check out his stuff if you want to learn more about that aspect. We should do another podcast with him. It's always good to have him on just to answer a lot of the common questions that a lot of people have. But in addition to this question, I also saw one, should I lift weight the same day I train Muay Thai or have one day train Muay Thai, one day workout? What are your thoughts on that, Paul? I know that, I mean, as pro fighters, I'll just let you answer this question.
If you're a fighter, then it's same day. And I feel like you should do the strength portion before the training portion. So the technical lifts stay as technical as they can be, because in martial arts, you're using your body weight. So it's a lot less likely that you get injured or, you strain a muscle. Though when you're in the gym, it's a lot more likely because you're adding additional weight to those body weight exercises. So I feel like you need everything you got, and then just pretty much leave 2 in the tank. Everything just in perfect repetition, good technique on the lifts. So leave 2 in the tank so that way you're not getting downs the next day. And I feel like you should be able to get through your training session just fine if you do it that way.
Boom. Well said. Next, Samuel Tobacco. I train for staying in shape, never going to a fight. Should I keep going to class or can I just train at home? Train at class and at home. Do it all. Boom. Next, my name ? this is a good relative question to the times. Where are the Thailand border closures at, and will you be running camps as soon as they're open again? So there's constantly new things happening. Like they just extended the visa amnesty, which a lot of tourists have been on since COVID hit, but they did that like 3 days after the amnesty ended. So they're figuring shit out as they go as well. But there is a new tourist visa that's allowed, and they're testing it out in October to allow certain foreigners come in from low risk countries. So that does point to good signs coming forward, but it's hard to know for sure. I would say go to like Thai visa forums and like just Google like relative news. The Tiger is one thing that I follow on Facebook that has a lot of up to date news, and Richard Barrow in Thailand. They have a lot of the up to date news on what's going on with travel. So hopefully that does that. And then yeah, we'll run a camp whenever makes sense. Like whenever we can fucking do it, we'll probably figure something out. All right, so we're almost at an hour. We're gonna cut this in 4 minutes. So let's just like do like 1 sentence answers for the next ones. All right. So Argia Rafi wants to know, what is the best tip for young aspiring fighters? Paul, 1 sentence, go.
Consistency, show up, and then Mies will show up in your ear telling you what to do next.
It's got all this war of art shit going on right now. But mine is just to know your why. Know and understand your why. The fried CDB, you have to set up your shots or you're always going to get blocked or worse punished. It's a trial and error thing, man. You do want to set up your shots, usually not throw them naked. Any other questions? Have you ever slit your shin checking a kick, Paul?
No, I've slit other people's shins.
Yeah, fuck yeah. I had it happen to me once. It wasn't too bad. It wasn't as bad as it might look sometimes, at least in my experience. I've seen some pretty fucked up shit. Do you have any advice on what to do on days off, like morning stretching routine to get harder kicks? What I do on day offs is recover, like massage, sauna, foam roller, eat well, relax, swim, sleep, read. That's what I do on my days off. Everyone's different. What do you typically do on your days off, Paul?
Man, recently it's just for us, we have a work schedule, so I'm usually trying to catch up on work. So I recover the body as much as I can. I feel like it's a mistake on my part not to recover the mind as much as I do the body, and I feel like that becomes more of an issue. But yeah, just waking up every morning, get the body moving, get the put some fluid in the joints. So not just like sitting on the couch watching TV all day, but like active recovery where you're forcing yourself to stretch and do mobility work.
Boom. All right, we'll do two more questions. I have a heavy bag and gloves at home. Where should I start with respect to learning Muay Thai from scratch by myself? My YouTube channel, Paul's YouTube channel. I have a complete heavy bag blueprint course. Boom. That like takes you from point A, complete beginner, to point B, world champion. Not really, but it takes you to like a complete beginner to like a proficient striker, and you learn the techniques. You have guided workouts and all that kind of stuff. So you can go to heavybagblueprint.com. If you use the code YouTube, you get 20% off. So you can check that out. And otherwise, you can just do some of the free workouts that I have on YouTube. And there's a lot of stuff to do, but essentially just start training, get good fundamentals, learn the basics, and just start hitting the bag. And take it from there. Take it just day at a time. Any advice on your side, Paul?
I mean, I have a free course that links into Sean's course. So if you want to take, if you want to take advantage of both, I have a little introduction where I have like really detailed clinch instruction, which like really builds the body up to be strong at the same time. So you can go to muaythaitechnician.com/heavybagmanual, and then you get a bunch of freebies from Sean's course as well. So if you want to get previews and like really check it out, you can go there.
Boom. All right. Last question just popped up. Do you create your own style or imitate different fighters as a beginner? Paul, I'll let you.
As a
start?
beginner, I definitely I would, for inspiration before training, I would watch certain styles and I would emulate them in training. But as time went on, I became a version of myself. But I definitely do still use different things I learned from those different styles. So I feel like in the beginning, you got kind of have to imitate until you become something of your own. I mean, I think everything in the world is created based on something someone else has done, and then just someone else adapted and elevated the rhythm and style of.
Yeah, I mean that pretty much sums it up right there. Like learn, like try to emulate the best. Take I kind of said it before. Take what is useful to your style and your body mechanics and your fight philosophy as you begin to create one of your own. But like essentially, in the beginning, you'll be learning from your trainers. You'll be learning by watching other fighters. But if you continue with it, then you'll start kind of just piecing together all the best aspects. I remember seeing a meme where it's like the best Muay Thai fighter ever is like the IQ of Sanchai, the left kick of Borkow, the right kick or the left kick of Yatsen and yada, yada, yada. And that's essentially what you kind of want to do is like create your own best version of what you think you can be as a Muay Thai fighter. So that's the last question. I know there was a couple other questions. Sorry we couldn't get to it. We went over the original 10 minutes that I said anyway. So you're welcome. You're welcome. But we appreciate you guys being on. And like I was saying before, Thursday mornings, 8:30 a.m. Eastern on YouTube, 7:30 p.m. in Thailand. We'll be doing these Q&As after every podcast. We'd love to have you here. So if you haven't gotten a chance, please leave a review on the podcast. Always appreciated. We're trying to get back on track with this. Like we said, we money's on the line for us to show up. So this shit is real now. And we'll be here every week. So thanks again. And Paul, you want to wrap up with anything?
No, that's all. Thank you guys for listening. Definitely make sure to subscribe, and we'll see you guys next week.